Hello everybody. In this screencast we're going to look at how we could change the weather app to use the JSON library, right? So basically the JSON library allows us to change a string into an object, or change a JSON string into an object, or change an object into a JSON string, right? And it's very straightforward, very simple to use. All right, so we start by adding the implementation details in the Gradle. I'll do that here. Here's the Gradle, sync now, and this adds the Gradle, adds the JSON library to our project. Now, if we look at the API, this is the first part of the API, which is the weather side of things, and this is what the weather API looks like, and it returns a JSON object, right? And inside the JSON object, I could pick and choose what I would like to get. All right. So now I'll create a new Java class. I'll call it the weather response. Weather response, here it is. And basically inside that weather response, let me close the emulator, double click here, expand this a little bit so that I can have both the postman request and my project on the same screen. Cool. So basically here is a JSON object, and that's the JSON object that it would represent. And let's say I would like to get this weather information here. So basically I could call it, for example, create a class. I'll call it that class, I'll call it weather, let's say info, and here's the class. And then basically inside it, that I'm gonna call it static. Okay, it's a static class, here it is. And then basically by declaring the static class as static, this means that this class can live without, it doesn't have to live inside the response, the weather response. And this is just for organizational purposes here. Let's say in the weather, I'm interested in getting the description and the icon. So basically I need a string description. So here is a string, here's the description, right? Here it is. And similarly an icon, all right? So here's that, and here we are. So basically I have a string and you need an empty constructor, right? And we're good to go. So we have the weather icon, here it is, weather info, and the empty constructor, and I have the parameters that I need. So now what I need to declare is inside the weather response, there will be a weather info, and its name is weather. Okay, this name should match the attribute name here, which is weather, right? And it's weather info, and inside it has description and icon. So basically I'm only going to collect from it description and icon. If you need main, then you declare a variable here, call it main, and you will get to capture main. So let's say I would also like to get main. Here is main. If I want to also get the ID, I can just type ID and I can get it. So that's the weather info. So I already got the weather info. Now what if I would like to get main? Here is I need this temperature stuff. All right, good. So basically we're done with weather info, right? Now let's create another class, static class, and this is gonna be main, let's say info, right? Here is that. And basically let's create our empty, we have a double temp, temp min, temp max, pressure, humidity, right? Humidity, here it is. Okay, cool. So I have all of them as doubles. They are inside main info. Create my empty constructor. Here is the constructor, and select none. I can also have a getter and setter and so on. So basically I can go in here and create getter and setter for all of these. Here it is. Similarly, I can do the same thing here, have a getter and setter for these attributes. All right, so here is weather info, main info. So main info, I need to call it main. So it is main info, I call it main. Okay, again, main is to match the name here. All right, so close this. Do I need visibility? No. Do I need the wind? Yes. So basically I can get wind info, static class wind info, and it has a double speed and degree. Create an empty constructor, here's that, and then similarly a getter and setter, and here we are. So basically this is wind info. Good, so we're done with wind info also, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Wind info is wind to match wind. Cool, so we're done with wind info. Do I need clouds? I can do that. So basically clouds and all can do that. So basically static class cloud info, there it is, and then basically it's called all. So this is a double all, that's what it is called. All right, and then basically here I'll do cloud info as clouds, right? So clouds info as clouds, here we are. Now I'll go back to weather again. So basically we did a mistake here with weather. Basically when you look at weather info, right, weather info describes this weather is an array, right? So basically weather info is just one component of that array. The weather is an array. So basically this is an array list, of weather infos. All right, so basically weather info just describes one element in that array. All right, cool. So basically I have weather info, I have all of that stuff here. I can also create an empty constructor for this class. Here is an empty constructor for the class. Here is a select none, and I can create a getter and setter, and a getter and setter for all of them. Cool, so now I have that for the class. I have the class definitions at the bottom here. And let's see, what else do we need? Do we need the sunrise, DT? We don't need all of that. We need the time zone, name, and COD. We don't need all of this. So basically this is the weather response. So now the weather response, now let's try it. So in the weather fragment, here is the body, right? Now let's do this. We got a weather response. We call it weather response equals, we need to create a JSON equal new JSON. So here is that, and then basically we'll just say JSON dot from the body to weather response dot class, right? So basically it will take that body, which looks like this string, and it will change it into weather response. Let's go and do log d here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a breakpoint just to show you what we are receiving. So now let's run this. Okay, and once the emulator runs, you will be able to see that we're able to parse. Okay, here it is. We pick Charlotte. Let's look at the logcat, but anyway, here it is. It stopped, and here is the weather response. Look at, for example, let's look at weather. Here it is. It's an array, you see, and this is the information that we captured. So weather, here it is. Here is the array, and we captured this info. The information we just included is main, description, and icon. Here is description, icon, and main. That's the weather. Now under main, if you look at main, we captured the temperatures and the humidity and all that interesting information here. And similarly under weather, we did that. Clouds, here is where is clouds. This is clouds. We captured all, which is 75.0. And wind, same story. If you look at wind, we captured the speed and the degree. Here's the speed and the degree. And okay, so basically that's the response. So now I could use that response to do whatever I'd like to do. So we here already have a weather object, and it takes care of that information. So instead of disturbing all the code that we wrote, what I'm going to do is, let's say I go to the project here, and in the weather class, I'm just gonna create an object here, which just say public. I create a constructor that receives weather response, res, right? And then from that weather response, I can extract from it a weather object. So basically, I could do this dot temp equals response dot get weather right? So basically I could, let's say the temperature is under main, right? So basically get main dot get temperature, that's temperature. And then similarly I can do it for the max and the min. So basically temp min, here it is, and then temp max, here it is. So basically get the minimum and get the maximum. So I got the temperatures and I can get the pressure. This dot pressure equals this dot get main dot get pressure. So I have that also. This dot humidity equal res dot get main dot get humidity, and we're good here. So I have all of that information here. You need the speed. The speed is under the wind. So same story. This dot speed equals res dot get wind dot get speed. This dot degree equal res dot get wind dot get degree. So I have the degree, and then I can the weather component is an array, right? So basically you could check to see if res dot get weather dot size is greater than 0, right? So then we could do this. We could say this dot description. So basically under the weather we need to capture description equals res dot get weather dot get at 0 dot get description, something like that. You can do this. That's the description. And then similarly I can get the icon. The icon is get. So I'm able to get the icon, get the description. Now the cloudiness is straightforward. This dot cloudiness equals, the cloudiness is under what? The cloudiness is under clouds. So basically we have res dot get clouds dot get dot we don't have a constructor, we don't have a getter and setter for it, so let's add the getter and setter for it, and we can go from there. So basically, where is it? The weather response, and we have cloud info. We can create a getter and setter here, getter and setter, here it is, and then also we need an empty constructor. And here's our empty constructor, and then basically I can go in and say get all, and that is my the cloudiness. So basically I could do something like that, right? And then when you are doing the weather fragment, and basically instead of doing the code like this, I am going to do the code, let's see, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to say mweather equals mweather equals new weather, and I'm going to send it the weather response. All right, so here it is. Makes sense. So we did this here, and then the code we have there is just going to, I'm going to take that code from here and remove all of this and use it like this. All right, so basically I'm just creating it using the response, and then I'm going to show it like this. All right, so let's run this and see if it will work. So now this is completely using the JSON library. Click Charlotte, and here we go. It's showing things. It seems to work. And let's go back, Chicago, and so on. So basically the forecast is very, very similar. So basically this forecast idea is really, really similar. You just have to manage how you call these, how you have to look at the API first. So let's go in. Here's the API, and I'm going to call it. So let me just minimize this, bring this to the side a little bit so I can call it. Here it is, send, and this is the code. This is the call for the forecast. Okay, and we can look at it and do the same exact thing, but it is very similar. You know, how I'll build the object for it, and maybe I'm not going to run it, but let's see. So that's the weather fragment, right? Weather response. For the forecast, I need to create another class. I'll call it Java class. I'll call it forecast response. All right, here it is. And then basically the forecast response, I'm not interested in all of this. I'm only interested in the list Okay, so this is a list, and that list has objects, right? So this is one object, the second object, third object, fourth object, and so on. So I'm interested in a list. Let's create the class for that object. So I'll copy all of this here. This is one object, right? So it looks like this. All right, now we scroll up a little bit, and let's see. Does it look like a weather? It looks very similar to our weather class, right? So basically, or to our weather response class. Looks really similar. It has a weather, it has a main. So here is the main. See here, it has a main, and then has a weather, right? Which I can reuse. It has the clouds, it has the wind, and it has this DXT. All right, so I can leverage some of this weather response, right? So basically what I'm going to do is I am going to indicate this. So basically this is the response, right? And then it will have a component here which looks similar to the weather response, okay? And basically this looks similar to the weather response, right? So basically let's do this, but it has one component that is not in the weather response, which is called the DTX, right? So does the weather response have the DTX? Let's see. Does it have the DTX or no? If it does, then we can just add it into that class. So let's run it and see. So let's close this. Scroll all the way down. There is no DTX, which is fine. So what we could do is we can add that. There is DT, but not DTX, right? Okay, cool. So let's see what we're going to do here. So what we could do is we could just leverage that class that we have. So basically I could come in here and say, when you run the forecast, I already have a list, right? So basically it's a list. So basically I have an array list of weather response, and I call it list. So let's see what happens when we do this, and let's create a constructor, an empty constructor, here it is, and create a getter and setter. Here it is, and let's see what we get. So basically that's the forecast response, and now I go back to the forecast fragment, and inside here I'm going to create JSON equal new JSON, and then we'll do the forecast response equals JSON dot, and this is the body comma forecast response dot class. All right, cool. So here we are, and we'll put a breakpoint here, or maybe we'll do a log d here, and that's where we put our breakpoint. Demo. Let's move the breakpoint to here, and we click here and see. Here we are, and we pick, let's say, Baltimore, and we check forecast, and it comes out. Oh, very nice. So here is the forecast. You see there is a list. The list has 40 items. You click on it. It has the clouds. We have the clouds. We have all from the clouds, right? So if you scroll down a little bit, you see here clouds has all, and we are able to also get the main. So from the main we're able to get the temperature, the minimum, maximum pressure, humidity, right? So we're able to get that stuff, so we're good here. And then the weather, we're able to get one component, right? And similarly the wind, we're able to get that component for the wind. But we are not able to get this DTX because DT underscore TXT is what needs to display. Let me continue this. You see what this what displays the date and time, right? Okay, so in order to do this, one option is to extend it. So basically, let's say if we try to extend, we create another class here. Let's say static weather. Let's say weather response. Extended, okay, or maybe extend weather response forecast weather response. We call it forecast forecast weather response, and this is a class. Okay, this is a class, and I'll say it extends the weather response. All right, cool. So now it extends it, so it has all the attributes. In addition to that, we will also have string this DTX, right? And then we create a constructor with nothing. Here it is, and then similarly, I will create getter and setter for this guy. Okay, cool. So that's this, and here we are. And let's see if this is going to work. So instead of using weather response, we're going to use forecast weather response, and it extends this weather response with that string. So let's see what happens when we do this. So now we added that. Let's debug. Here we are. And then you will see that I pick San Francisco, check the forecast, and here we are. And then the weather forecast, list of 40, click on that. Here is DTX, and we're also getting the other ones. Make sense? So we're able to extend, we're able to do all the interesting stuff, and things are working fine. You know, it seems that I'm getting the data. And now the remaining part is just a matter of changing it, because the code that we have works with this forecast class, right? So basically we can just, that forecast class can be very similar to the weather class, and we can accommodate it so to include, to transform the forecast, very similar to what we did with the weather, right? So the weather class, we created this constructor that receives the response and filters out what it needs from that response and maps it into a weather object, so that we don't have to rewrite a lot of parts here of the code. But I just wanted to show you how I'm using the JSON library to parse the JSON that's coming in, and how do I create these classes that map to the JSON that I receive, right? All right, so please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.